Hello, how are you, Chevre? I hope you're all well. Gesund, stark und freilach. Healthy, strong, and happy. Begashmis and beruchnis. All those that need for shalema should have one now. Hashem should stop the magefa immediately. Amen. Today is a very special day on the Chabad calendar, Beis Iyer, which is the birthday of the Rebbe Marash, the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe. And his birthday was 186 years ago. And he said a famous saying, which this saying, in my humble opinion, is one of the principles of the Rebbe. It's a worldview, as we'll soon see. Before we get to that, let's start with the pasuk, which is as follows. The pasuk says, Derech mitzisecha orutz, in the way of your commandments I shall run, kisarchiv libi, for you will broaden my heart. Derech mitzisecha orutz, kisarchiv libi. I will run in the path of your mitzvahs, because my heart will be broadened. So we have a person who is stopped, he's now walking. That's one level. Then you have another level where you're walking. And then you have a third level where you're running. And then we say, why will you be running in the path of mitzvahs? Because you have a broad heart. What is the saying of the Rebbe Marash? The most famous saying, and that's what's going to be our focus today, and that is Lechatchila Ariber, which in English it went like this. The world says, if you can't go under, go over, like when there's an obstacle or a fence. But I say, go over to start with. Leap over to start with. That is the saying. The Welt sagt, da me kenne sharunte, darf na Ariber. Aber ich halt Lechatchila Ariber. Go over to start with. Now, I think, humbly, that I think there's three main points to this saying. Three levels. It contains so much. But let's focus, I think, on three details, 3 points. What it could mean. One point is that when you're dealing with a problem, sometimes don't recognize it or acknowledge it as a problem, act like it's not a problem, and do something which is a game changer and counterintuitive and turns the whole thing upside down. That's one level of Lechatchila Ariber, go over in the first place. And we'll explain, like a paradigm shift. A second level, I think, means that don't underestimate yourself. Sometimes a person faces a challenge or he has to do a task and he says, I can't do it. And he goes for the lower standard. And over here we're saying, no, go for gold. Strive for excellence. That's a second level of meaning. A third level is like sometimes a person's thinking, should I call up this guy? He might not like it. And we say in English, your problem is you think too much. Just do it. Like you say, paralysis due to analysis. You know what? If it's coming from a good place, just pick up the phone, give him a call. So that's another level of Lechatchila Ariber. So, first of all, let's go back to the pasuk over here. We're saying that you'll be able to accomplish the top level. You're flying. And why? Because your heart is broadened. That's called breitkeit, a broadness. The opposite of verquetschkeit, which is constriction. So when a person has his on button, and the on button is going, go, go, go. All systems go. And he has that approach in life, so then he's going to reach the top. And that's what the pasuk means. We're not just going to walk in the ways of Torah mitzvahs, we're going to run. Sometimes I give the contrast when I'm speaking about the difference between a tzaddik and a Baal Tshuva. I say there's the difference between a plane and a rocket ship. A plane accelerating, constantly going from level to level, but it's incremental. A rocket ship is a whole different thing. Lechatchila Ariber means like a rocket ship. So today, instead of saying a story, I'll just give two examples of the first level of Lechatchila Ariber. Now, we cannot overemphasize how much, in a certain way, you could say by the Rebbe, every single letter of his in Igros Kodesh, you could see Lechatchila Ariber. Every single sicha, if you look, the Rebbe's approach in learning, you could see Lechatchila Ariber. And there's no question about it that by the Rebbe, Lechatchila Ariber is in everything. And the biggest proof is a talk that the Rebbe gave on Beis Iyer Tafshin Memtes, where the Rebbe shows how the beginning of Torah Shebechsav is in a way of Lechatchila Ariber, Torah Shebal Peh is in a way of Lechatchila Ariber, the beginnings of all the Svarim, and Tanya, and so on and so forth. In other words, the Rebbe saw this idea in everything. And maybe throughout this week, we'll elaborate more on the different aspects of Lechatchila Ariber, and especially because, like I said, I believe this is fundamental. This is a general approach in life in every situation. So, two examples we could say. One is in the times of the Baal Shem Tov. You could say that in a certain level, the Baal Shem Tov was Lechatchila Ariber, the founder of Chassidus and the Chassidic movement. And this I heard from Melech Tzibur, Moram HaMishpiyim Melech Tzibur, in the name of Groinim. And in this, we're going to give two aspects, two ways to look at it. One way that he said that he heard in the name of Groinim is the famous analogy, the fable, which is also brought down in non-Jewish circles, about the wind and the sun. And the wind and the sun had an argument, who's stronger? And all of a sudden, a man was walking along the road who was dressed in a cloak. And the wind says, you know what? We'll see who can get the person to take off his coat first. The one who can get the person to take off his coat first, he's stronger. So the wind comes along and tried first, and it blew hard. And at first, when the wind blew, the coat opened up and it was about to fall off the person. But the person actually grabbed the coat and wrapped himself around stronger with the coat. The more the wind blew, the stronger the wind blew, the stronger the person wrapped himself up in the coat. And the sun came along and started shining. Warmth, geschmack. The person felt good. It's getting a little hot in here. He took off his cap. He loosened his shirt. He took off his tie. Bekitzer, to make a long story short, he took off his coat. So Greinam said, that's what I heard from Reb Melech, that this is the nafkamina between Chassidus and Musa. Musa comes along and speaks about the Sumerah. If you don't do this, this is going to happen to you. But Chassidus comes along and shows the beauty of Yiddishkeit. Tamuru, kitei vavaye. Chassidus is oir v'chayes nafshenu. Turn on the light, turn on the warmth, turn on the vitality, turn on the energy, turn on the spirit. The more you turn on the spirit, the more you show the beauty and the warmth and the life of what Elikus, godliness is, and what Torah is. That is going to have a deeper impact. Because when you're coming confrontational, so as soon as it's confrontational, the other side becomes more entrenched, as they say, double down, because he feels that it's a threat. And therefore, because you're a threat, he's going to go against you. But if you make him feel good, he enjoys it, he goes along. Sometimes we say that this is the difference between persuasion, friendly persuasion, and force. But you could also say that's Lechatchila Ariber. Don't get into arguments. Don't get into debates. Just do your thing. Lechatchila Ariber. Turn on the good more. Stay in your realm. And automatically you'll see how everything becomes uplifted. That's one example. Another example to say about the Baal Shem Tov, and the same idea of Lechatchila Ariber, they give the analogy of the prince and the pauper. The idea. You have a pauper. He's walking along and he's thinking to himself, I have 50 problems. I have a hole in this wall. Actually, I have 7 holes in this wall. I have 8 holes in my left side. My roof is leaking. Whatever. There's problems all over. This pipe is busted. I have a hole in my pants, etc., etc. So he makes a list of how many problems he has. He has 55 problems. What am I going to do? That's the way the pauper thinks. Now comes along the Baal Shem Tov, and he comes along to a Yid, and the Yid is suffering, and he has 55 problems, he tells him, Herzechain, Yid, you're not a pauper. You know who you are? You're B'nei Yechidei Shel Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're a prince. Wow, this person here is a prince. He's not a pauper. He becomes uplifted completely into a total realm. He says, wow, I'm a prince. Unbelievable. I'm the king's son. I'm the king's child. I'm royalty. And he starts looking at his problems differently. All of a sudden, he doesn't have 55 problems. He has all of a sudden only 36 problems, let's say. And then the problems look smaller because basically he's in a totally different place. And that's the pshat Lechatchila Ariber. We're not going to deal with the details. We're not going to deal with the symptoms. We're going to get to the cause. We're going to make a paradigm shift. And all of a sudden, things will work out in a much better way. So that's one level of the idea of Lechatchila Ariber, which in the words of Chassidus and Kabbalah, we say there's two approaches in general when you're dealing with negativity or opposition. One is called B'derech Iyer, which means you stay in your own realm, in your own world, and you just become more so-called like superior. Go higher, go stronger. That's B'derech Iyer, and all of a sudden the way of illumination. And then there's a lower level which is called B'derech Slapshus. Sometimes you have to lower yourself. You have to get what's called down and dirty. But that's a lower method because in the end, you do get down and dirty. You do have to go down. So Lechatchila Ariber, in the context that we're talking about over here, means to tell the person you're a prince, not a pauper. And the idea of just making a general paradigm shift and be like the sun, shine, anam pol di momanan, and then your whole way in life being connected to the Eibishter is in the way that he says in the Pasuk, derech mitzusecha, that you are running in derech mitzusecha orotz kisarchev libi. And the Eibishter should help, and this is especially important now. We're talking about Lechatchila Ariber, but you're stuck, you're isolated, but that's the point. Even when you're in a situation where you're isolated in your home, your approach, your attitude, your mindset, your perspective has to be in a way of Lechatchila Ariber. And the Ariber should help that if we go with such an approach, he will also go Lechatchila Ariber and bring the Gula Mitzvah Shlema now. Broadcasting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.